The sun you are looking at is 8 minutes and 20 seconds old, not the light. The Sunday, by the time it reaches you, the moment it left is already over. The moon, the face across the table, the room around you. There is no present tense in vision, only the past at different depths. Tonight, on Midnight Science, we walk through that delay slowly. If this keeps you company, a like and a subscribe helps these long nights reach other people. Tell me where you are watching from and the hour there. Settle in. Raise your hand toward the window. Not high, not dramatically. Just lift it into whatever light is in the room with you right now. The lamp beside the bed, the glow of the screen, the pale wash coming in from the street. Hold it there. Look at the back of your hand, the ridges of the knuckles, the small blue lines under the skin, the edge where the fingers catch the light and the shadow begins. You are looking at your own hand. Nothing could be more immediate than that. And yet what you are seeing is not your hand. What you are seeing is a message about your hand, sent by light, carried across the small distance between your fingers and your eyes, and delivered to you slightly after the fact. The hand you are looking at is a report, a very fast report, a very accurate report, but a report all the same. Something happened. Light bounced. The news traveled. You received it. The delay is small, almost unimaginably small. If your hand is about 1/2 meter from your face, the light reflecting off your skin takes roughly 1.5 billionths of a second to reach your eye. That is a number so far below the resolution of your experience that calling it a delay feels almost dishonest. Nothing in your body can register it. Nothing in your life depends on it. You will never notice it, not once, not ever, but it is not zero. That is the whole of it. That is the crack. The delay is not zero, and once you accept that it is not zero, you have to follow it, because it does not stay small. It grows. It grows with distance, steadily and without exception. And the universe is very large. And by the time you have followed the delay all the way out to the edge of what can be seen, the small, honest lag in your hand has become millions of years, and then billions, and the word now has quietly stopped, meaning what you thought it meant. Tonight we are going to walk that out. Slowly, from your hand to the wall, to the window, to the moon, to the sun, and then farther still. We are not going to rush it. There is no reveal waiting at the end that requires you to stay awake for it. The point is the walk. So keep your hand where it is for a moment longer, and let us begin with the simplest fact underneath all of this. Light has a speed. That sounds obvious now, but it was not always obvious, and for most of human history it was not even suspected. For thousands of years the natural assumption was that seeing was instantaneous. You open your eyes and the world is there. There is no travel involved in that, no waiting, no journey. Vision felt like contact, like reaching out and touching the world with some invisible extension of yourself. The idea that light moved, that it went from one place to another, that it took time to get there, was not an intuition anybody had. It had to be found. And when it was found by accident, by people who were trying to answer a completely different question and noticed that their clocks kept being wrong in a way that made a pattern. Light moves at about 300,000 kilometers every second, about 186,000 miles every second. Written down, those numbers are just numbers, a row of digits that your eye skims and your mind agrees to. So let us translate, because translation is the only way any of this becomes real. In 1 second, light could go around the entire equator of this planet 7.5 times, 7.5 laps of the Earth, in 1 second. In the time it takes you to say the word second, that is the speed we are talking about. That is why the delay in your hand is measured in billionths. At that speed, ordinary distances are nothing, a room is nothing, a city is nothing. From this side of the planet to the other side is a fraction of a heartbeat, and this is exactly why the delay stayed hidden from us for so long. Not because it is not there, but because at human scale it is so small that no ordinary experience could ever expose it. Our senses were built for a world of meters and seconds. The lag lives far below that floor. We were never going to stumble on it by looking harder at our own hands. But hold that number, 7.5 laps of the Earth in a single second, because we are going to keep using it. It is going to be our anchor. Every distance from here on will be measured not in kilometers, but in delay, in how long the message took, in how old the news is when it reaches you. That is the frame. Distance as lateness. Every distance is a duration. Now lower your hand and look at the wall. Whatever wall is across from you, however far it is, 3 meters, 5 meters, the light coming off it left that surface about 10 or 15 billionths of a second ago. If you are in a large room, a hall, a lobby, the far wall might be 20 meters off, and the light from it is about 70 billionths of a second old. Still nothing. Still far below anything you could feel. But notice the direction of the change. The number went up. It went up because the distance went up. And it will keep doing that, always, forever, without exception, for the rest of this script and for the rest of your life. Now look at the screen you might be holding. If it is close to your face, the glow leaving it reaches you in roughly 1 billionth of a second, a nanosecond. There is a famous way of picturing this. In 1 nanosecond, light travels about 30 centimeters, about the length of a ruler, about the length of your forearm from elbow to wrist, which means that a nanosecond has a physical size. You can hold it, you can measure it against your own body. Put your hands about a foot apart, and you are holding a billionth of a second in the space between them. Sit with that for a moment. Time, out here in the world, has a length, and the length of 1 billionth of a second is roughly the width of the gap between your palms. Once you have that, everything else is just multiplication. Now, if there is someone across the table from you, look at them. Maybe there is not. Maybe you are alone in the dark with a screen, which is its own kind of arrangement, and we will come back to that. But imagine it anyway. A face across a table, a meter away, maybe a meter and a half, somebody you know well enough that you have stopped noticing the details of their face, the way you stop noticing a road you have driven 1,000 times. The light that carries that face to you left their skin about 5 billionths of a second ago. 5 billionths of a second is not a meaningful amount of time. It cannot hold an event. Nothing happens inside it. A muscle cannot twitch in 5 billionths of a second. A thought cannot form. An expression cannot change. In every practical sense, you are seeing them exactly as they are. And still, strictly, precisely, physically, you are not seeing them. You are seeing where they were and what they were doing a moment ago, where a moment here means an amount of time so small that the word moment is far too heavy for it. You have never once seen a human face in the present tense. Not your mother's, not your child's, not your own in a mirror. Every face you have ever loved has reached you slightly after the fact, as a report, as an arrival. The gap is so small that it changes absolutely nothing about your life, and it is not zero. Let us go outside now. Step out, or imagine stepping out, into whatever the night is doing where you are. Cold air or warm air, street light or no street light, cloud or clear. Look at the moon. If it is up, the moon is on average about 384,000 kilometers away. Light covers that in about 1 3/10 seconds. Now we have crossed a threshold. This is the first delay in the entire walk that lives inside human experience. 1 3/10 seconds is a real amount of time. It is roughly the gap between two heartbeats at rest. It is the length of a slow breath in. It is how long it takes you to say the word Wednesday unhurried. So when you look up at the moon, you are looking at something that is about 1 1/3 seconds old. If a meteor struck the surface, at the exact instant you looked, you would not see the flash for over a second. The event would already be finished. The dust would already be rising, and you would still be standing there, looking at a moon where nothing had happened yet. We know this delay is real in a very direct way because we have talked across it. When people stood on that surface and spoke to the people who had sent them, every sentence took a second and a bit to arrive, and every reply took a second and a bit to come back. A conversation with a built-in pause of nearly 3 seconds in every exchange. Not a technical fault, not a bad connection, just geometry. Just the cost of the distance, paid in time, exactly as it must be paid. That is what it means to say that light has a speed. It means that distance is expensive and the currency is waiting. Now hold the moon there for a second, at 1 3/10 seconds of lateness, because we are about to make a very large jump, and the moon is the last thing that will ever feel close. The Sunday, you cannot look at it now, and you should not look at it in the day either, but you know where it is. It is under the horizon somewhere, on the other side of the ground you are standing on, and in some number of hours it will come back up and light your window and the side of your face while you are still half asleep. The sun is about 150 million kilometers away. Light crosses that in 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Let that land for a second. 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Not a technical abstraction, not a physicist's figure. 8 minutes and 20 seconds is an amount of time you have spent doing nothing at all, hundreds of times, without noticing. It is a walk to the corner. It is the time between putting water on to boil and the kitchen filling with steam. It is a shower. It is the wait for a bus. It is roughly 2 songs. Every single time you have stepped outside into sunlight, The light landing on your arms was 8 minutes and 20 seconds old. The warmth on the back of your neck in summer left the surface of that star before you walked out the door, before you found your keys, before you decided to go outside at all. It was already on its way, already committed, already crossing the emptiness between there and here, while you were still inside the house deciding. That is not a metaphor. That is the plain mechanical truth of it, and it applies to every sunny day you have ever had. Take the two numbers together and look at what they do. Your hand, 0.5 meter away, 1.5 billionths of a second. The sun, 150 million kilometers away, 500 seconds. Same messenger, same speed, same rule, applied without favoritism to every distance in the universe. The rule does not care that one of them is your body and one of them is a star. It only cares how far. And here is the part of the 8 minutes that people find hardest to hold. So let us do it slowly and carefully and without drama. If the sun stopped existing right now, this instant, you would not know. The sky would stay bright. If it were daytime where you are, the light would keep falling on the road, on the roofs, on the backs of your hands, exactly as it had been. Nothing would flicker, nothing would dim. There would be no warning, no signal, no shudder in the air. The birds would go on. The shadows would go on, sitting at the same angle, sharp and ordinary. For 8 minutes and 20 seconds, the world would look completely fine. And it would look fine not because anything was hiding it from you, but because the news had not arrived. The last of the light would still be in transit, strung out across that enormous gap, a column of messages already sent that could not be recalled and could not be hurried. You would be standing in genuine sunlight from a sun that was no longer there. This will not happen. This is not a warning about anything. The sun is stable and enormous and boring in the best possible way, and it has been shining for 4.5 billion years and will go on shining for billions more. That is not the point. The point is the structure. The point is that the world can look completely undisturbed while being out of date. The point is that there is no mechanism anywhere in your perception, no alarm, no instinct, no sharpened attention that can tell you whether what you are looking at is still true. You cannot check. Nobody can check. There is no faster messenger to send ahead and confirm. The light is the fastest thing there is, and the light is what is late. And so every sunny afternoon of your entire life has come with an 8 minute and 20 second guarantee attached to it, which is not really a guarantee at all. It is a receipt. It says, as of 8 minutes ago, everything was fine. Hold that for a moment. Now let us collect what we have, because the frame we are building here has to be solid before we take it anywhere large. Your hand, 1.5 billionths of a second. The screen, 1 billionth. The face across the table, 5 billionths. The far wall, 70 billionths. The moon, 1 3/10 seconds. The sun, 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Every one of those is a distance rewritten as a delay. That is our working translation, and we are going to keep it for the entire rest of this walk. From here on, when I tell you how far something is, I am really telling you how old it looks. Distance is age. Distance is lateness. There is no separating the two, because there is no way to look at anything without light, and there is no way to hurry light. That is the sentence to keep. There is no way to hurry light. You can build a better telescope. You can build a bigger mirror, a colder detector, an instrument so sensitive it can register a handful of individual photons after a journey of billions of years. You can improve everything about the receiving end. You cannot improve the delivery. The delivery is fixed by the universe at a flat rate, 7.5 laps of the Earth per second, no exceptions, no discounts, no express service. And so the entire visible world is a delivery, not a window, not a live feed, a delivery, which means seeing is not what you thought it was. You have probably always pictured vision as an outward act. You look at something, you direct your attention at it. The verb points away from you, out into the world, and the thing you are looking at is the object of what you are doing. That is how the language works. And the language has been quietly teaching you a picture that is not correct. Nothing goes out from your eyes. Nothing at all. Your eyes are not projectors. They do not reach. They are catchers. They sit open in the dark, and things arrive in them. Every time you have ever looked at anything, you are standing still and receiving. The world sends, you collect. That is the whole of vision, and every parcel is stamped with a departure time that is always earlier than the moment of arrival, sometimes by billionths of a second, sometimes by minutes, sometimes, as we will find, by longer than the human species has existed. Now, one more thing before we let this part close, and it is the thing we will not answer tonight for a long while. Everything I have described so far happens outside you. It happens in the air, in the vacuum, in the space between the object and your eye. That is the journey of the light. But the journey does not stop at your eye. When that light finally arrives, when it passes through the front of your eye and lands on the back of it, something else begins. Something slower, something biological and chemical and electrical, made of cells rather than of vacuum, and made of cells that are nowhere near as fast as light. The signal has to be converted. It has to be carried inward. It has to be assembled into something that can be experienced. And all of that takes time too, real time. Time you could measure with an ordinary clock. We are going to come back to that much later, once we have gone all the way out to the far edge of what can be seen and turned around. But plant it now, quietly, and leave it there. The delay does not end when the light arrives. There is a second delay waiting on the inside. For now, though, stay outside. Stay with the simple version. Look at the room again. The wall, the lamp, the window, the dark beyond it. Look at your hand if you want to lift it one more time. Nothing here is happening at the moment you see it. Not one thing. The whole scene is a set of arrivals, each one slightly old, each one aged in exact proportion to how far it had to come. The near things are almost fresh, the far things are not, and nothing about that is wrong, nothing is broken. Your eyes are working perfectly. The universe is behaving exactly as it always has. The only thing that was ever inaccurate was the picture in your head, the one where seeing meant touching, where looking meant now. You are not witnessing the world. You never were. You are receiving it. The light is arriving. It has been arriving the whole time. Go outside again, if you can. If you cannot, the window will do. Look up at whatever sky is available to you. It might be full of stars. It might be 3 stars fighting through streetlight and cloud. It might be nothing at all, just a low orange ceiling of city glow with an aircraft crossing it. All of those are the same sky, seen through different amounts of interference, and everything I am about to tell you is true of all of them. Here is the thing your eye is doing when you look up. It is taking every point of light in that entire hemisphere and assembling them into one picture, one field, one image. The stars sit together on the same dark surface, at the same apparent depth, arranged into shapes, and the whole thing behaves like a photograph, something taken at a single instant, a snapshot of the sky tonight. That is the most natural thing in the world to assume, and it is wrong in an interesting way. The sky is not a photograph. It is not one moment. It is not a picture of anything that ever happened all at once. Every single point of light up there left its source at a different time. Some left seconds ago, some left years ago, some left centuries ago, some left before your language existed in its current form, and a few of them, the faint ones you can barely hold in the corner of your vision, left before there were people at all. And then, tonight, by pure accident of where you are standing and where everything else is, they all arrived at your eye together. That is what a night sky is, not a moment, a meeting, a set of messages that were sent across an enormous range of departure times, traveling at exactly the same speed, arriving simultaneously at one small wet surface at the back of your head, and being assembled there into something that looks like a single scene. Nothing in the picture belongs to the same time as anything else in the picture. Let us walk it the way we walked the room, near things first. Start with the planets, because the planets are the closest things up there, and because they behave differently from the stars in a way that is worth being careful about. A star makes its own light. A planet does not. A planet is a rock or a ball of gas hanging in the dark, and the only reason you can see it at all is that sunlight fell on it and bounced off, which means the delay is doubled. The light you are seeing from a planet did not start at the planet. It started at the Sunday. It crossed the gap from the sun to that planet, however long that took. It struck the cloud tops, or the dust, or the ice. It bounced. And then it crossed a second gap from the planet to you, which took however long that took. 2 journeys stacked, 2 delays added together. Take Venus. When Venus is in the evening sky, bright enough that people mistake it for an aircraft, sunlight has already spent about 6 minutes reaching it. Then, depending on where the 2 planets are in their orbits, that reflected light spends somewhere between 2 and 15 minutes reaching you. Add them together and the Venus you are looking at is between 8 and 20 minutes old. Take Mars. Sunlight takes about 13 minutes to reach it. The reflected light then takes anywhere from about 3 minutes to about 22 minutes to get to us, because the distance between Earth and Mars swings enormously as the 2 orbits carry us toward and away from each other. So the small rust-colored point in your sky is somewhere between 16 and 35 minutes old. This is not a curiosity. This is the practical daily reality of every machine we have ever put on that surface. When a rover on Mars sends back a picture, the picture is already minutes old when it arrives, and any instruction sent back is minutes old when it lands. Nobody is driving anything on Mars in real time. Nobody can. You send a message into the past tense and you wait for the past tense to answer. Take Jupiter. Sunlight takes about 43 minutes to get there. The bounce back to us takes another 35 minutes or so at closest approach, and closer to 50 at the far side, which means the Jupiter you can see, that steady, creamy point that does not twinkle, is well over an hour old. An hour. You could make a meal in the time that light has been traveling. Take Saturn. Sunlight needs roughly 80 minutes to reach it, and the reflection needs roughly the same again to reach you. So the Saturn in your sky is around 2.5 hours old, give or take, depending on the season of the solar system. 2.5 hours. If you saw Saturn at midnight, you saw a Saturn from before dinner was cleared away. Now notice what is already happening quietly in the sky above your head. The moon is 1 3/10 seconds old. Venus might be 12 minutes old. Mars might be 25 minutes old. Jupiter might be 1 hour and 20 minutes old. Saturn might be 2.5 hours old. Those are 5 objects in one glance, spread across 5 completely different departure times, all sitting on the same black surface, all looking equally present. You cannot see the difference. There is nothing in the image that tells you. Saturn does not look older than Venus. There is no yellowing at the edges, no faded quality, no visual marker of any kind that says this one is 2 hours behind and that one is 12 minutes behind. The sky presents them as equals because the sky presents everything as equal. It flattens all depths into one surface and hands them to you as a single scene. Hold that for a moment, because it is the mechanism behind everything that follows. The sky is not lying to you. The sky is just not equipped to tell you the truth about depth. Depth is exactly the thing your eyes cannot read at these distances. Now we leave the solar system and the numbers change character. Up to this point, every delay has been in seconds, minutes, hours, human units. Units you can spend and feel. Past the edge of the planets, the units change, and they do not change gently. The nearest star to the Sun is Proxima Centauri, and it sits about 4.25 light years away, 4.24 years. That means the light leaving it tonight will not reach here until the year is more than 4 years further along. And the light arriving here tonight left in a year that is already finished, already summarized, already sitting in your memory as a thing that happened. Proxima itself is too faint to see with your eye alone. It is a small, cool red star, dim enough that you need an instrument. But it belongs to a system, and the brighter members of that system are visible from the southern half of the world as one of the brightest points in the entire sky. 4.33 light years, essentially the same figure. So let us hold the number, because the number is the point. 4.25 years. Think about where you were 4 years and 3 months ago. Not vaguely. Specifically, what city, what room, what job or course or arrangement, who you were talking to every day, what you were worried about, that thing that felt enormous and permanent at the time, that you would now have to work to remember clearly. Somebody who started a degree then has finished it by now and has moved cities twice, and has stopped talking to half the people they met in the first month. A child who was born then can run, and argue, and lie badly, and has opinions about food. Something began 4 years and 3 months ago and has already run its whole course and ended. Probably several things. A job you took and left. A relationship that started and finished. A version of yourself that has been quietly replaced without any announcement. That is the gap. That is the delay between the nearest star and this window. And Proxima is not far away. Proxima is the absolute closest thing there is. It is our next door neighbor. Everything else in the sky is further. Let that land for a second. Now walk outward through the stars you actually know by name. Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, the one that sits low and flickers through every color when the air is unsettled, is about 8.5 light years away. So the Sirius you can see tonight left in a year when you were most likely doing something completely different with your life. 8.5 years is a school career. 8.5 years is the entire span of a childhood friendship. Vega, the bright blue point high overhead in northern summer, is about 25 light years away, a quarter of a century. If you are old enough, the light hitting your eye tonight left before your children were born. If you are younger, it left before you were. Arcturus, warm and orange and unmistakable once you have found it, is about 37 light years out, nearly 4 decades. The Arcturus you see is a message posted before most of the technology in your house existed. Polaris, the pole star, the one that has been used for navigation for as long as anyone has been navigating, is roughly 450 light years away. 450 years. Every sailor who ever steered by that star was steering by light that had left it centuries before they were born. Every one of them. Not one of them ever saw Polaris. They saw a Polaris. They saw a 450-year-old dispatch and set their course by it. And it worked perfectly, because on those timescales, stars do not move enough to matter. The light entering your eye tonight from Polaris, left in a century when the country you live in either did not exist or existed under a different name, or existed with different borders, or existed with a different language spoken in its capital. Depending on where you are watching from, that light predates your national anthem, your flag, your currency, your constitution, and quite possibly the first written record of the town you are sitting in. Betelgeuse, the red shoulder of Orion, is somewhere in the region of 500 to 600 light years out. The distance is genuinely uncertain, and astronomers argue about it, which is itself worth noticing. Even the depth of the brightest and most famous stars is hard to pin down. Rigel, the blue foot of the same figure, is roughly 860 light years away. Deneb, in the Summer Triangle, is far enough that estimates spread out badly, somewhere between about 1,500 and 2,500 light years. The light you see from Deneb left before a great deal of what you would call history had been written down. So look up again at whatever is visible from where you are and see what you are actually holding. A planet from 2 hours ago, a star from 4 years ago, a star from 25 years ago, a star from 450 years ago, a star from 1,000 years ago or more. All in one glance, all apparently simultaneous, all flattened onto the same dark ceiling and presented as one image, taken tonight. The sky is a stack of different pasts, resting on top of each other, pretending to be a single surface. And now we have to be careful, because at exactly this point in the walk there is a story waiting that almost everybody has heard, and it is not true, and it matters that we say so clearly. You have probably heard some version of this, that when you look up at the night sky, most of the stars you are seeing are already dead, that they burned out long ago, and their light is still traveling, and you are looking at a field of ghosts. It is a beautiful sentence. It appears in songs and in films and in 1,000 well-meaning captions. It is not correct. Here is why, and the reasoning is simple enough to hold. The stars you can see with your eye alone are close, overwhelmingly close, on the scale of the galaxy. Almost every star visible without an instrument is within a few thousand light years, and the great majority are within a few hundred. Our galaxy is about 100,000 light years across. So the sphere of stars you can personally see is a small local bubble, a neighborhood, a few streets of a continent-sized city. And stars live a long time. An ordinary star like the sun burns for around 10 billion years. Smaller stars burn for far longer than that, longer than the universe has so far existed. Even the enormous, bright, unstable ones, the ones that live fast and end violently, still last for millions of years. Now put those two facts next to each other. The light from a visible star has been traveling for hundreds of years, or a couple of thousand at the outside. The star itself has a lifespan measured in millions or billions. A few hundred years against a few billion. That is a rounding error. That is a single second out of a human life. So the honest position is this. Almost every star you can see tonight is still there tonight. Still burning. Still doing exactly what it was doing when the light left. There are a small number of unstable giants where the situation is genuinely open, where the light travel time is long enough and the star volatile enough that we cannot be certain. But those are the exceptions, and they are rare, and they are famous precisely because they are exceptions. The field of ghosts is not what you are looking at, and I want to be plain about why we are bothering to correct this, because it is not pedantry. It is because the truth is stranger than the myth, and quieter, and it does not need the exaggeration. The myth says, what you see is gone. The reality says, what you see is real and present, and almost certainly still there, and you still cannot see it as it is. You can only ever see where it was and what it was doing. Not because it ended, but because the message is slow, the star is fine, the star is right there, and there is still no possible way for you to know what it is doing at this instant, and there never will be, and if it changed tonight, you would not find out for 4 years or 400. That is the actual strangeness, not absence, delay. Now hold both halves of this at once, because both are true and neither cancels the other. The night sky is a live view. Those stars exist. They are burning right now, tonight, as you stand there. They are not a recording of something finished. The overwhelming majority of the objects you can see are still doing the thing you are watching them do. And the night sky is an archive. Every point in it is a document with a date on it, and none of the dates match, and none of them are tonight. The sky is live and the sky is old. Both are true. They are not in conflict. They only feel like they are in conflict because we are used to thinking that seeing something means catching it in the act, and out here that has stopped being available. Later, much further out than tonight's stars, the balance between those two halves is going to shift, and shift decisively. When we leave the range of the eye and start using instruments, when we go from hundreds of light years to millions and then to billions, the archive side takes over completely. Out there, at those depths, we genuinely are looking at things that have already ended, that have merged, changed beyond recognition, or stopped existing in any form we would recognize. That is coming. That is the next part of the walk. But not here, not with your eyes. Here, above your head, the sky is mostly alive and entirely late. Before we go further out, I want to stop and put a person in this, because none of what I have just told you was obvious, and none of it was free, and somebody had to find it. For most of recorded history, the assumption was that light arrived instantly, not as a considered position, just as the obvious default. If light took time, surely you would notice. You do not notice. Therefore, it does not. The first solid evidence to the contrary came from a Danish astronomer named Ole Romer, working at the Royal Observatory in Paris in the 1670s, in the group around Giovanni Cassini. He was not looking for the speed of light. Nobody was. That was not the project. The project was Jupiter, and specifically one of its moons, Io, which orbits Jupiter quickly and regularly, and disappears behind the planet on every circuit. Those disappearances are a clock, a natural, reliable, celestial clock ticking away at the far end of the solar system, visible to anyone with a decent telescope. And a clock like that was enormously valuable, because if you could predict its ticks precisely, you could use it to work out longitude. And longitude was one of the great practical problems of the age. So people watched Io for years, night after night, in the cold, recording the exact moment the moon vanished into shadow and the exact moment it reappeared. This is the part that deserves to be said out loud. The work was not glamorous. It was a young man sitting at an eyepiece for years, writing down times, and the times were wrong. Not randomly wrong, which would have been noise, systematically wrong. When Earth was on the near side of its orbit, closer to Jupiter, the eclipses ran early. When Earth was on the far side, further from Jupiter, they ran late. And the discrepancy went back and forth, year after year, in step with the Earth's own position. Romer's insight was that the clock was not misbehaving. The clock was fine. What was changing was the distance the news had to travel to reach the observer. When we were further away, the report took longer to arrive, and the eclipse appeared to happen late. When we were closer, it arrived sooner. Light was taking time. Measurable, predictable, accumulating time. He worked out roughly how long light took to cross the diameter of the Earth's orbit. His figure was not exact by modern standards, and the value he used for the size of the orbit was itself uncertain, so the number that came out was in the right region rather than the right place. But the principle was completely correct, and it was the first time anyone had shown from evidence that light does not arrive instantly. Within a few years, Christian Huygens took the result and turned it into an actual speed, which is to say that the entire framework of this script, the whole idea of distance as delay, came out of somebody being patient enough to notice that a small moon kept being slightly late and being unwilling to just correct the tables and move on. That is how most of this gets done. Not with revelation, with somebody writing down times for years and refusing to ignore a pattern that would have been much more convenient to ignore. So now, with all of that, look up one more time and find a constellation. Any one you know. Orion is the easiest for most of the world, so let us use that. You know the shape. 2 bright shoulders, 3 stars in a tight diagonal row for the belt, 2 more below for the legs. It is the most recognizable figure in the sky, and it has been recognized under different names and different stories by essentially every culture that ever looked up. Here is what it actually is. The stars of Orion are not near each other. They are not a group. They are not connected. They are not in any meaningful sense together. Betelgeuse at one corner is a few hundred light years out. Rigel at the opposite corner is nearly twice that. The 3 belt stars are further still, and they are not even at matching depths as each other. Spread across the figure, the distances range across many hundreds of light years, and the objects at those distances have no relationship, no shared history, no gravitational interest in one another whatsoever. The shape exists only from here, only from this one position in the galaxy, from this one small planet, along this one particular line of sight. Move a few hundred light years in any direction and the figure falls apart entirely. The shoulders drift, the belt scatters, and the hunter is gone permanently without ever having existed. And now add the second layer, the one we have spent this whole part building. Not only are those stars not in the same place, they are not in the same time. The light from one corner left in one century, the light from another corner left in a different century. The 3 stars of the belt each sent their light at different moments, separated by decades or more, and those 3 separate moments have arrived here tonight in perfect alignment, close enough together on the sky that you can cover all 3 with your thumb. So the pattern is a false pattern twice over. False in space, because those stars are not neighbors. False in time, because those moments are not simultaneous. What you are looking at is a set of unrelated events from unrelated centuries at unrelated depths, arranged by nothing but your own position into a shape that has a name and a story and a season. And it is still beautiful. That is worth saying. Knowing this does not take the hunter out of the sky. It only changes what the hunter is made of. He is not made of stars. He is made of arrivals. Come back inside for a moment, and then we are going to go much further than we have gone. Everything up to now has been within reach of your own eyes. The hand, the wall, the face, the moon, the planets, the named stars of the constellations. All of it was available to you personally, tonight, without equipment, standing on the ground in the dark. The whole first stretch of this walk was something you could verify by looking. That ends here. Past this point, the distances leave the range of the human eye entirely, and everything we say has to be taken on the evidence of instruments, of mirrors and detectors, and long exposures, and decades of careful cross-checking. We are stepping out of what you can see and into what we can see, collectively as a species, using tools built for exactly this and nothing else. But before we leave, there is one last thing your eye can do on its own, and it is remarkable that it can do it at all. On a genuinely dark night, far from towns, in the right season and from the right latitude, there is a faint smudge in the constellation of Andromeda. Not a point, a smear, a soft oval of light, roughly the width of your fingertip held at arm's length, easy to miss and easier to dismiss as a wisp of cloud or a smudge on your glasses. People have noticed it for a very long time. Persian astronomers described it 1,000 years ago as a small cloud. For most of history, it was catalogued as exactly that. A nebulous patch, a bit of haze among the stars. It is a galaxy. It is the nearest large galaxy to our own, and it contains something like 1 trillion stars, and it is about 2.5 million light years away. 2.5 million years. Let me say that again so it registers. The light that reaches your eye from that faint smudge left its source 2.5 million years ago. Now do what we have been doing all along and translate it, because the number by itself is inert. 2.5 million years is not a length of time you have any relationship with. Nothing in your body knows what it means. So put it against something. 2.5 million years ago, there were no human beings on this planet. Not none of your relatives, none of your species. Nothing that you would recognize as a person was walking anywhere on Earth. The creatures alive here then were upright and social and beginning to work with stone, and they were on the road that leads to you, but they were not you, and they were not close to you, and they would not have looked back. There was no language in the sense you mean it, no fire under control, no agriculture, obviously, no writing, no cities, no wheel, no domesticated anything. The continents were arranged approximately as they are now, but the ice was doing something different, and the animals were different, and every single thing you would call history had not started and would not start for an almost unbearably long time. That light left then. It left and it began crossing, and it kept crossing while everything that has ever mattered to anyone happened underneath it. It was in transit while the ice advanced and retreated, again and again. It was in transit while stone tools became better stone tools. It was in transit while people learned to keep a fire, to cook, to bury their dead, to make marks on a wall in a cave, with their hands as a stencil. It was still in transit when the last ice age ended, still in transit when somebody first planted a seed on purpose, still in transit through the first cities, the first written numbers, the first laws carved into stone. It was still in transit through every empire you have ever read about, the rise and the collapse and the rise of the next one, through every war, through every religion's founding, through the invention of glass and of the printing press and of the telescope that would eventually be pointed at it. It was still in transit last century, still in transit when you were born, still in transit through your entire childhood, and through everything you have ever done, and through every night you have ever spent awake, worrying about something. And it finished tonight. It finished its journey by landing on the back of your eye while you stood in the dark looking up, and it will never travel again, because it has arrived, and arriving is the end of a photon's story. 2.5 million years of crossing concluded in your eye, in silence, without any indication that anything has concluded at all. Hold that for a moment, and it is worth sitting with the ordinariness of it. That is not a special photon. Nothing marked it. It looks like every other faint scrap of light. You could look at it and shrug and go back inside, and most people do, and there is nothing wrong with that. The universe does not announce its depths. It just hands them to you at the same brightness as everything else. Now we go further, and to go further we need instruments. And the instruments change the character of what we are doing, because a telescope is not really a magnifier. That is the schoolroom version, and it is misleading. A telescope is a bucket. Its main job is to collect light, to gather more of it than your small dark pupil ever could, and to hold still while it does so. The bigger the mirror, the more light it catches. The longer the exposure, the more light accumulates. And with enough collecting area and enough patience, you can build up an image of something so faint that no human eye could ever have detected a trace of it, which means a telescope is a machine for looking further back, not metaphorically, mechanically. Every increase in depth is an increase in age. The instrument does not see distant things better. It sees older things at all. Once you accept that, a certain question becomes obvious, and it took a surprisingly long time for anyone to seriously ask it. What happens if you take the largest telescope you have, point it at a patch of sky where there appears to be absolutely nothing, and just leave it there for a very long time? Not at a bright object, not at a known target, at nothing. At a piece of dark that looks empty in every previous survey. That decision was genuinely controversial when it was made. Telescope time is extraordinarily expensive and extraordinarily contested. Handing over many hours to stare at an apparently blank rectangle on the chance that something might accumulate in it struck a lot of serious people as an unjustifiable gamble. They did it anyway. In the middle of the 1990s, over 10 consecutive days, an orbiting telescope was pointed at a small blank patch near the handle of the plow and left there, gathering. The patch was tiny, roughly the size of a grain of sand held at arm's length. That is the standard comparison, and it is worth building properly, so do it. Pick up a grain of sand. Hold it out at the full extension of your arm. Look at how much of the sky it covers. That is the fraction of the heavens involved here. Something like 1/24 millionth of the whole sphere. The image came back with about 3,000 galaxies in it. Not stars, galaxies. 3,000 separate collections of hundreds of billions of stars each, packed into a rectangle you could hide behind a grain of sand. They went back later with better instruments and did it again, longer and deeper, and got about 10,000. And then a new telescope was built, one that sees in infrared, one that can catch light, that has been stretched out of the visible range entirely by the expansion of space, and it was pointed at another patch. And in 12.5 hours it gathered thousands more, including the faintest objects ever recorded. That patch was also about the size of a grain of sand held at arm's length by somebody standing on the ground. So take the image, whichever version of it you have seen, because you have almost certainly seen one. A dark rectangle crowded with smears and spirals and points of orange and white, some of them stretched into arcs, some of them barely more than a suggestion. It looks like a decorative thing, a poster, a screensaver. Now apply everything we have built tonight to it. Every one of those objects is at a different depth. Every one of those depths is a different age. That rectangle is not a photograph of a region of space at a moment. It is thousands of separate moments, from thousands of separate epochs, spread across billions of years, stacked into one flat frame because they happen to lie along the same line of sight. There is a galaxy in that frame from 4 billion years ago. Beside it, apparently touching it, is one from 9 billion years ago. Behind that, one from 12 billion. And scattered among them, the faintest ones, the small red ones you would never pick out unless somebody circled them, are objects from a time when the universe was less than 1 billion years old, when the first structures were still assembling themselves out of gas that had never been anything before. Those are not neighbors. They are not in a group. They are not looking at each other. Most of them are so far apart, in space and in time, that no message could ever pass between them. The rectangle is a false pattern, exactly like the constellation was, but scaled up beyond any comparison. Orion was a handful of unrelated centuries pretending to be a shape. This is thousands of unrelated eras pretending to be a scene. And here, finally, is where we come back to the thing we set aside in the last part. Earlier I told you that the popular idea about looking at dead stars is not true for the sky above your head, and it is not. The stars your eye can see are close and long-lived, and almost all of them are still burning tonight. Out here, that changes completely. Out here, at these depths, we are genuinely looking at things that have already ended. A galaxy seen as it was 10 billion years ago has had 10 billion years to become something else. In that span, galaxies merge. They collide and pass through each other and settle into new shapes over hundreds of millions of years. Star-forming regions run out of gas and go quiet. Whole populations of the brightest, hottest, most short-lived stars, the ones that dominate the light we are receiving from those young systems, have burned through their entire existence and ended many times over since that light departed. The specific bright blue star whose light is contributing to a smudge in that image lived a few million years and died long before the light got halfway here. That is not speculation, that is arithmetic. Those stars cannot last 10 billion years. Nothing that bright can. So the light we are collecting is a genuine report from an event that is finished. The object that sent it is not gone in the sense of vanished, most likely. It is gone in the sense of transformed past recognition, merged into something larger, rearranged, quieted, aged into a completely different thing. And there is no way to check. That is the part that has weight. We are not simply looking at the past. We are looking at a past we cannot follow up on. There is no possible observation, no better instrument, no future technology that will let anyone see what that galaxy looks like at this instant. Not because we lack the ability, but because the information has not been sent yet, and when it is sent, it will take another 10 billion years to arrive, and by then nobody who wondered will be here. We are permanently locked into receiving that object's ancient news, forever, at the exact rate at which it was sent. Say it plainly, and then let it be. For everything beyond a certain depth, we are watching things that ended long ago, and there is no way to see what replaced them. Now let us go all the way to the limit, because there is a limit, and the shape of it is stranger than most people expect. You would assume the edge of what we can see is a matter of brightness, that things get fainter with distance, and eventually they get too faint, and that is the boundary. Build a better telescope, and the boundary moves outward. That is true up to a point, and then it stops being the relevant problem. There is a harder edge, and it is not made of space, it is made of time. The universe has an age, something close to 13.8 billion years, which means light has only had 13.8 billion years to travel anywhere, which means there is a distance beyond which no light has had the time to reach us yet, no matter how bright the source, no matter how good the instrument, no matter how long we wait tonight. That boundary is the edge of the observable universe, not the edge of the universe. There is no reason to think the universe ends there, and considerable reason to think it does not. It is the edge of what has had time to arrive. The universe almost certainly continues past it. There are almost certainly galaxies out there in every direction, ordinary ones, doing ordinary things, with the same physics and the same chemistry, and we will never receive a single photon from any of them, not because they are hidden, because the mail has not had time to cross, and because space itself has been expanding while all this light has been in transit. The actual present distance to the objects at that boundary is much larger than 13.8 billion light years. The current figure is around 46 billion light years. The light took 13.8 billion years to reach us, and while it traveled, the ground underneath it stretched, and the source was carried further away, which means we are receiving news from places that are now much further away than they were when they sent it, and are still receding, and are still moving beyond any possibility of reply. Now go right to the wall. If you look further and further out, you are looking further and further back, and eventually you reach a time when the universe was not transparent. In its first few 100,000 years, it was hot and dense and filled with charged particles, and light could not travel freely through it. Every photon was scattered almost immediately. The whole cosmos was opaque, like the inside of a fog, like the inside of a star. Then it cooled enough for atoms to hold together, and the fog cleared, and light was suddenly free to travel in straight lines for the first time. That happened about 380,000 years after the beginning. The light released at that moment is still arriving. It is arriving right now, from every direction at once, everywhere, all the time. It has been stretched by the expansion of space until it is no longer visible light at all, but microwaves, cold and faint and almost perfectly uniform, and it fills the entire sky. That is the oldest possible message. That is the wall. Nothing earlier can ever be seen with light, because before that moment there was no light that could travel. So the observable universe is a sphere, centered exactly on you, with a surface made of the earliest transparent instant in the history of everything. And every other observer, anywhere, has their own sphere, centered on themselves, with the same radius and a different set of contents. This is the low point of the walk. So let us stand in it honestly, rather than hurrying past. You are sitting at the center of a sphere of received light. Everything you can ever know about the universe arrives at that center, late at a fixed rate, from sources that cannot be contacted, in an order determined entirely by distance. The nearest things are almost current, the furthest are ancient. Everything in between is graded smoothly by delay. You cannot see anything as it is. Not the hand, not the face across the table, not the sun, not the nearest star, not the nearest galaxy, not the deep field, not the wall of first light. Not one thing in the entire catalogue of the universe is available to you in its present condition, and nobody can send you a correction. Nobody can send you an update at any speed other than the speed the universe permits. There is no channel, there is no exception, there is no arrangement that could ever be made. Let that land for a second. But I want to be careful about what kind of feeling this is, because there are two available and only one of them is accurate. The wrong one is smallness. The wrong one says, this proves you are insignificant, a speck, a nothing, briefly conscious on a rock in an indifferent void. That reading is very popular, and it is not what the geometry says. The isolation here is not personal. It is not a judgment about your importance. It is not the universe having an opinion about you. It is a shape. It is a consequence of the fact that information moves at a finite speed and distances are large. It applies identically to everything, everywhere, always. It applies to the deepest galaxy in the deep field, which is also sitting at the center of its own sphere, also receiving late news, also unable to see anything as it is. Every observer in the universe is in exactly your situation. Not one of them has ever been in the present. Not one of them ever will be. This is not your isolation. It is the isolation, universally distributed, identical for all. That is not insignificance. That is a situation. You are in a situation, and so is everything else. And the situation is symmetrical. That is a very different feeling from being small, and it is the accurate one. Now let us put a person into this too. Because the deep field did not arrive from nowhere, and neither did the ability to say 2.5 million years with any confidence. For a long time, the smudge in Andromeda was an argument. There were serious astronomers who held that it was a cloud of gas inside our own galaxy, and serious astronomers who held that it was a separate system entirely, unthinkably far away. The debate could not be settled, because nobody could measure the distance, and nobody could measure the distance because there was no reliable way to work out how far away anything faint actually was. The tool that broke the problem open came from a woman named Henrietta Swan Leavitt, working at Harvard College Observatory in the early 1900s. She was employed to examine photographic plates, glass plates, exposed at telescopes, then brought back and studied by hand. Her job was to catalogue the brightness of stars on those plates, thousands upon thousands of them, one at a time, comparing images taken on different nights to find the ones that changed. The work was repetitive, poorly paid, and largely uncredited. She was one of a group of women doing this at Harvard, hired precisely because the labor was considered clerical, and she was profoundly deaf for most of her adult life, and she did this for years. And in the middle of that, examining variable stars in a cloud of stars far to the south, she noticed a relationship. The ones that took longer to cycle from bright to dim and back were, reliably, intrinsically brighter. The period predicted the true luminosity. That sounds modest. It was one of the most consequential measurements of the century. Because if you know how bright something truly is, and you can see how bright it appears, the difference tells you how far away it is. She had produced a way to convert light into distance, a ruler that worked across the void. Within a little over a decade, That ruler was used on the smudge in Andromeda, and the smudge resolved into a separate galaxy at an enormous distance, and the size of the known universe increased by a factor that has no reasonable comparison. Every distance in this part of the script, every deep field depth, every step out into billions of years, rests on the foundation of methods built from what she found while sitting with plates of glass. One star at a time, for years. She did not live to see most of what it became. That is the pattern, and it keeps repeating. The universe gives up its depth to people who are willing to do the same small, careful thing for a very long time. So let us end this part where we started it. Quietly, picture the deep field again, the dark rectangle, the crowded scatter of smears and arcs and pinpoints, no bigger on the sky than a grain of sand at arm's length. Every mark in it is a separate depth. Every depth is a separate age. Some of that light left when the universe was young enough that its first structures were still forming. Some left when the sun did not exist. Some left when this planet was a molten thing without a surface. None of them are from the same moment. None of them are from this moment. There is no moment in the image at all, and they arrived together at one instrument, in one exposure, and were flattened into one frame that fits on a screen you could hold in your hand. Thousands of separate pasts in a single rectangle, arriving all at once. That is the deepest we can look, and it is still only what got here. Now turn it around. Everything we have done so far has pointed outward. The hand, the wall, the moon, the sun, the nearest star, the smudge in Andromeda, the deep field, the wall of first light. We went out as far as it is possible to go, and we found that the whole universe arrives late, graded smoothly by distance, and that nobody anywhere has ever seen anything in the present tense. But at the very beginning, in the first part, I left something behind. I said that the delay does not end when the light arrives. I said there was a second delay waiting on the inside, and that we would come back to it once we had gone all the way out and turned around. We have gone all the way out. This is the turn. So follow one photon in, just one. It leaves the lamp beside you, or the screen, or the pale surface of the wall, and it crosses the room in a few billionths of a second, and it enters your eye, and it passes through the lens and lands on the back of your retina. That is the end of the journey we have been tracking. Everything we said about light stops being relevant at that surface, because from here on nothing travels at the speed of light. From here on it is biology, and biology is slow. The photon strikes a molecule. Specifically, it strikes a molecule sitting inside a cell at the back of your eye, and the energy it carries causes that molecule to change shape. A kink in a long chain straightens out. That is the whole event. That is the entire moment of contact between the universe and you. A single molecule bending. That bend triggers a chain of chemical reactions inside the cell, which changes the electrical state of the cell, which changes the signal it is sending to the cells connected to it. This takes time, not billionths of a second. Real, measurable, ordinary time on the order of tens of milliseconds, because chemistry has to physically move things, and moving things is slow compared to light. Then the signal has to leave the eye. It travels along the optic nerve, a bundle of about 1 million fibers, out through the back of the socket and into the brain. Nerve signals are not electricity in a wire. They are a wave of chemical and electrical change moving along a membrane, and even the fastest ones, wrapped in insulation to speed them up, top out at somewhere around 100 meters per second. 100 meters per second. Hold that against the number we have been carrying all night. Light does 300 million meters per second. The signal inside you does 100. Light is roughly 3 million times faster than you are. Then, once the signal reaches the brain, it has to be processed. It goes first to a relay in the middle of the brain, then out to the visual cortex at the very back of your skull, which is a strange piece of routing when you think about it, since the light came in at the front. And in that cortex, it is taken apart. Edges are extracted. Orientations are sorted. Motion is detected in one stream, color in another, faces in a region that specializes in faces. The image is disassembled into components and passed forward through layer after layer, and at each stage more time is spent. Add it all together and the figure that comes out, from the arrival of the photon to the point where the information is represented in your brain in a form that corresponds to conscious seeing, is roughly 80 to 100 milliseconds. About a tenth of a second. Now translate it, because we translate everything here. A tenth of a second is not nothing. It is not a rounding error. It is a duration you have direct experience with. It is roughly the time it takes to blink, from the moment the lid starts down to the moment it is back up. It is about a third of the gap between two beats of a fast song. It is short enough that you cannot subdivide it by feel, and long enough that the world can move inside it. At highway speed, a car covers about 3 meters in a tenth of a second. That is most of a car length. So every time you have driven anywhere, the position of the vehicle in front of you, as represented in your head, was a car length out of date. A thrown ball crosses about 2 meters in that time. A sprinter at full speed covers a meter. A housefly, which is fast in ways that matter to a housefly, has already made 2 complete decisions. And here is the part that should make you sit up, because we spent the whole first half of tonight going outward, and it turns out we did not have to go very far to find the biggest delay in your life. The light from your own hand reaches your eye in about 1.5 billionths of a second. The processing of that light inside your head takes about a tenth of a second. The inside delay is something like 60 million times longer than the outside delay. Every distance in your room, every distance in your house, every distance on this entire planet produces a light delay smaller than the delay inside your own skull. If someone signaled to you from the far side of the world by the most direct possible route, the light would cross that distance faster than your brain could process the flash once it arrived. You have to go out past the weather satellites, more than 30,000 kilometers up, before the universe becomes slower than you are. The moon is one of the first objects where the outside delay finally exceeds the inside one, and it only exceeds it by a factor of about 13. Sit with that. For essentially everything that has ever mattered to you, everything you have ever looked at, touched, loved, feared, or driven past, the dominant delay was never the light, it was you. The universe delivers on time. The bottleneck is at the receiving end. Let that land for a second. Now, if it stopped there, this would be a simple story. Everything arrives a tenth of a second late, uniformly, and that would be that. you would be living in a consistent little lag, and since everything in your experience was shifted by the same amount, nothing would ever seem out of place. But it does not stop there, and the reason it does not is the genuinely strange part. Because vision is not your only sense, and the other senses do not run at the same speed, not even close. Consider touch. Put your finger on the tip of your nose. Now put your other hand on your foot. Do both at once if you can reach, or just imagine it clearly. Both feel simultaneous. Obviously, trivially, of course they do. They should not. The signal from your nose has to travel maybe 15 centimeters to reach your brain. The signal from your foot has to travel the entire length of your leg, up your spine, and into your head. Call it 1.5 meters, or more if you are tall, 10 times the distance, and nerve signals do not travel instantly. Along the fastest fibers, the difference in arrival time between a touch on the face and a touch on the foot is somewhere in the region of 20 to 30 milliseconds. 2 touches, delivered at the same instant, arriving in your brain a measurable interval apart, and yet you experience them as one event, not two. There is no sensation of the nose slightly preceding the foot. There is no lag you can attend to. If there were, every step you have ever taken would have felt slightly out of sync with the ground, and it never has. So something is happening in between. What is happening is that your brain is waiting. That is the plain version. The fast information arrives, and rather than being handed straight to your experience, it is held, buffered, kept in a kind of waiting room while the slower information catches up. And only once the arrivals have been collected and aligned is a single unified moment assembled and delivered to you. Your sense of now is not a reading. It is a construction built after the fact, out of components that arrived at different times, deliberately delayed so that they can be presented together. You are living in a moment that was assembled, not received. And notice what that implies about the 10th of a second. Some of that delay is unavoidable, the physical cost of chemistry and conduction, but some of it is bought on purpose. Your brain is choosing to be late in order to be coherent. It would rather hand you a consistent world a 10th of a second behind than a jittery, fragmented, out-of-sync world in something closer to real time. That is a design decision. That is a trade-off made somewhere deep in the architecture in favor of coherence over immediacy. The same problem shows up between senses, and there it is, far worse. Sound travels through air at about 340 meters per second. Light travels at 300 million, which means that for anything more than a few meters away, the sound of an event arrives noticeably after the sight of it. You know this from thunder. You count the seconds and you get the distance, and everybody has done that as a child. But you do not experience the mismatch at conversational distance. When someone across the room claps their hands, the sound and the sight arrive together in your experience, even though the sound was physically later by a measurable amount. Your brain has a tolerance window. Within a certain range, roughly a 10th of a second, arrivals from different senses are treated as belonging to the same event and stitched together into one. Outside that window they come apart, which is why a badly synchronized video is intolerable and a slightly delayed one is invisible. So the unified moment you are experiencing is not just delayed, it is negotiated. There is a policy about what counts as simultaneous, and the policy is generous, and it is applied without consulting you. Now we come to the mechanism that makes all of this actually workable, and it is the strangest of the lot. If your brain simply waited and then delivered a faithful 1/10 of a second old image of the world, you would be in trouble in any situation involving motion. A 1/10 of a second is enough for a fast object to cross a real distance. Catching a ball would be nearly impossible. Crossing a road would be a gamble. A predator moving at speed would always be a car length past where you thought it was. Yet people catch balls. People play sports where a small object arrives at enormous speed and has to be intercepted within a window of a few thousandths of a second. Batters in professional baseball face balls traveling fast enough that the ball moves several meters during the time it takes to process the sight of it, and they connect about as often as they miss. That should not be possible with a purely reactive system. If all you have is old news, you cannot act on the present. So the brain does something else. It predicts. It takes what it knows about how the object was moving and it extrapolates forward. It does not represent where the ball was when the light left it. It represents where the ball probably is now, given the trajectory, given the speed, given how the world normally behaves. This has been measured in a number of ways, and one of the cleanest is an effect that has been studied since the 1990s, notably by the psychologist Romy Nijawan. Show someone a moving object, and at some instant, flash a stationary object right beside it, perfectly aligned. Ask where the flash appeared relative to the moving one. People reliably report that the moving object was ahead of the flash, even though at the instant of the flash they were level. The moving object is perceived further along its path than it physically was. The stationary flash, having no trajectory to extrapolate from, is perceived where it actually appeared. The two are handled differently because one can be predicted and the other cannot. More recent work has pushed this further, looking directly at the neural representation of position. When an object moves predictably, the brain represents it closer to where it currently is than to where the delayed sensory information says it was. The prediction is doing real work, pulling the internal picture forward in time to compensate for the lag, which means this: what you experience as the present moment is partly a forecast. It is your brain's best estimate of where the world has probably gotten to in the 1/10 of a second since the data left. Now, I want to be extremely careful here, because this is the point where this kind of material usually goes wrong. There is a version of this that says reality is an illusion, that your senses are lying to you, that nothing is real, that you live in a hallucination, that the world you experience is a fabrication and therefore untrustworthy. That is not what any of this shows, and I am not going to say it. Here is the accurate version, and it is better. Your perception is a reconstruction. It is not a direct readout. It was never going to be a direct readout, and no direct readout is physically available to any creature anywhere in the universe. Information takes time to move. Any brain, anywhere, on any world, built out of anything, would face exactly this problem. And a reconstruction is not a lie. A reconstruction is an achievement. Think about what is actually being pulled off here. Your brain is receiving a stream of degraded, delayed, incomplete, out-of-sync signals from a set of sensors with wildly different response times and physical distances. The visual data is a tenth of a second old and has been broken into pieces and routed through separate processing streams. The touch data from your extremities is later than the touch data from your face. The auditory data is later than the visual data for anything more than a few meters away. Your eyes are jumping several times a second, and during each jump, the image smears into uselessness and is discarded. Out of that, you get a stable, continuous, unified world. A room that sits still, objects that stay where they are, a face that moves smoothly. A sense of being somewhere, now, with things happening around you in an order that makes sense. That is not a deception. That is an extraordinary piece of engineering running continuously for your entire life without you ever noticing it running. The seams are hidden so well that you have to work quite hard to find them. There is one you can find tonight, if you want. Look away from something, then flick your eyes quickly to a clock with a moving second hand. Very often the first second after your eyes land will seem to last too long, a stretched moment where the hand appears to hang before resuming its normal rhythm. That is your brain covering the gap created by the eye movement, backfilling the missing time with the image it landed on. The stitching becomes briefly visible, but that is the exception. Almost always, the work is invisible, and you simply live in a world that appears to be delivered to you directly. So hold both of these at once, because both are true, and they do not cancel each other. The delay is real. It is measurable. It is unavoidable. And every conscious moment you have ever had arrived after the fact. And your experience is trustworthy. The world it presents corresponds accurately to what is out there. You can reach for a cup and get the cup. You can catch what is thrown to you. You can recognize a face across a room in a fraction of a second and be right. The reconstruction works reliably for a lifetime. Both are true. They are not in conflict. They only look like they are in conflict if you assumed that trustworthy had to mean immediate, and it never did. Now let me put a person into this, the way we have with everything else, because none of this was obvious either, and somebody had to establish it. For most of history, the assumption about nerves matched the assumption about light, instantaneous. The will moves, the arm, and the arm moves with no interval. Sensation touches the skin, and you feel it with no interval. It was not a claim anyone defended because nobody thought it needed defending. Serious scientific opinion held that the speed of a nerve signal was either infinite or so fast that it could never be measured. The most respected physiologist of the era, Johannes Müller, took the position that the problem was beyond experimental reach. It seemed obviously true. Nerve signals move through a body that is at most 2 meters long. Whatever was happening in a space too small for a mid-19th century laboratory clock to resolve. In 1850, a young researcher named Hermann von Helmholtz, working at Königsberg, measured it anyway. He used the leg of a frog, a nerve still attached to a muscle, and a device that could record extremely short intervals by tracking a moving surface. He stimulated the nerve at a point close to the muscle and recorded the delay before the muscle twitched. Then he stimulated the same nerve at a point further away and recorded the delay again. The second delay was longer, and the difference between the two delays, divided by the distance between the two stimulation points, gave him a speed. The answer came out at a few tens of meters per second. Not infinite, not immeasurable, slower than sound, slower than a bird. Slow enough that the signal traveling up your leg is genuinely, meaningfully on a journey. He then went further and did it on people, measuring how long it took a person to respond to a touch delivered at different points on the body, and found the same pattern. The further from the brain, the longer the response. The consequences were larger than the number. He had shown that thought takes time, that perception is a process with a duration, that it occupies an interval, that there is a measurable gap between the world and the experience of the world. Mental life, which had been treated as something outside of physical time, turned out to have a clock on it. And he did it, as with almost every measurement in this script, by being patient with something small and repetitive and unglamorous. A frog leg, a moving surface, a series of trials, an unwillingness to accept that a thing was unmeasurable simply because everyone said so. Römer found the delay between the world and the eye by refusing to ignore a moon that was slightly late. Helmholtz found the delay between the eye and you by refusing to ignore a muscle that was slightly late. The same shape of stubbornness, applied at two different scales, roughly 2 centuries apart. Between them, they closed the loop. Everything from the source to the experience is on the clock, all of it, with no instantaneous step anywhere in the chain. So let us come back to the room. Look at the face across the table again. If there is nobody there tonight, bring back the one you imagined in the first part. We said at the beginning that the light leaving their skin took about 5 billionths of a second to reach your eye. That was true, and at the time it sounded like the whole story, and it sounded almost too small to bother with. It was not the whole story, it was barely the start of it. Add what we now know. 5 billionths of a second in the air, then tens of milliseconds in the chemistry of your retina, then the trip along the optic nerve, then the disassembly and reassembly in the back of your head, then the waiting while the sound of their voice catches up, then the prediction that pushes the picture forward to compensate for all of the above. The face you are seeing arrived about 1/10 of a second ago and was then rebuilt into something you can experience, using rules you did not write and cannot inspect. In that 1/10 of a second, they have moved. Slightly, the muscles around their mouth have shifted. Their gaze has moved a fraction. Their expression has continued to develop into whatever it is becoming. Nothing dramatic has happened, but something has happened, because a person is never still. You are looking at a reconstruction of someone who has already moved on. And that is true of everyone you have ever looked at. Your parents, your children, the person you have shared a bed with for 20 years, your own face in the mirror in the morning, which is doubly delayed, out and back and then processed. You have never seen any of them in the present tense, but look at what you have seen. You have seen them accurately. You have read their mood from a fraction of an expression and been right. You have known from across a room before a word was spoken that something was wrong. The reconstruction is good. It is astonishingly good. It has carried you through every relationship you have ever had. The gap is real. The face is real. Both. You are not seeing them now. You are seeing them as they were 1/10 of a second ago, faithfully rendered, quietly late, which is, it turns out, exactly how you have always seen the Sunday. Let us stop walking for a while and stand still. We have gone a long way tonight. Out through the room, past the moon, past the sun, out to the nearest star and the named stars of the constellations, out to the smudge in Andromeda that left before there were people, out to the deep field with its thousands of stacked eras, out to the wall of first light where seeing stops being possible. And then we turned around and came all the way back in, through the eye, along the nerve, into the 10th of a second where the world is assembled, and we found the largest delay of your life sitting inside your own head. That is the whole shape of it. That is the walk. Now I want to hover here for a while and look at what we have collected, because there is a way of reading all of this that leaves you in the cold, and there is another way of reading exactly the same facts that does not, and the difference between them is not sentiment. It is not a softening of anything. It is a genuine consequence of the same geometry, one that we have not drawn out yet. Start with a plain summary. Nothing can be observed in the present. Not one thing, not by you, not by anyone, not with any instrument that will ever exist. Now turn that over and look at the other side of it. If nothing can be observed in the present, then the past is not what we thought it was. We treat the past as the thing that is gone. That is the standard picture, and it is built into the language. The past is over, it has passed, it has receded. It is the region of things that used to be available and are not available now, and the further back you go, the more thoroughly gone it is, until eventually there is nothing left but inference and residue and the fading testimony of people who were there. But look at what we have actually found tonight. The past is the only thing that has ever been available to look at. Everything you have ever seen was past. Every face, every room, every sunrise, every page of every book you have read, every screen, every road, every person you have loved, every single observation in the history of observation has been an observation of something already finished. There is no other kind. There has never been any other kind. So the past is not the inaccessible region. The past is the only accessible region. It is the entire contents of visible reality. The present is the thing that is unavailable. The present is the thing nobody has ever seen. We had it backwards. We thought we were standing in the present, looking back at a past that was slipping away. We are standing nowhere in particular, receiving the past continuously, at every distance simultaneously, as the only material there is. That is not a loss. That is a reversal of what counts as loss. And once you have that, the delay stops being a barrier and starts being something else. So let us look carefully at what a photon actually is, considered as a thing that carries information. A photon leaves a surface. It carries with it a very specific set of properties. Its energy, which is its color, its direction, its polarization, together with all the others leaving that same surface at that same instant. It carries a complete description of that event. And here is what matters. Once it has left, three things are true of it. Permanently, it cannot be recalled. There is no mechanism anywhere in physics by which the source can reach out and retrieve a photon it has already emitted. Emission is one way. The moment the light departs, the event has been published, and there is no retraction. It cannot be altered in transit. Across empty space, it simply continues. It does not fade in the sense of degrading. It does not blur. It does not lose its content. It can be redshifted by the expansion of space, stretched to longer wavelengths, and it can be absorbed or scattered by whatever it hits, and it spreads out so that fewer photons pass through any given area the further you go. But the individual message is not corrupted. What arrives is what was sent. That is why we can read the chemistry of a star from 13 billion years ago and trust the reading. And it cannot arrive early. It travels at exactly one speed in every direction for every observer without exception, and nothing in the universe can hurry it or delay it or bargain with it. Put those three together and you have something remarkable. Every event that has ever happened anywhere that involved light has written itself into an expanding shell of information, moving outward from the place where it happened, at the maximum speed the universe permits, and that shell has never stopped expanding and will not stop. Think about the shape of that. A candle lit in a room 500 years ago sent a shell of light outward, through the window, out past the town, out past the atmosphere, out into the dark. That shell is currently 500 light years in radius, and it is still going. It is passing stars right now. It is thin, unimaginably thin, spread over an enormous surface, far too faint for anything to reasonably detect. But it exists. It is out there tonight, a sphere of 500 light years radius, expanding, carrying the news of one candle in one room. Every event does this. Every event that emits or reflects light does this. The Earth has been reflecting sunlight for 4.5 billion years, continuously, and every instant of that reflection has departed as a shell and is still traveling. The planet is surrounded by an unimaginably deep archive of its own history, layered outward like the rings of a tree, except that the rings are moving and never stop. The universe is a self-recording system. Nobody designed it that way. There is no archive department, no repository, no intention. It is simply what happens when you have a finite speed of information and a very large space. Every event broadcasts itself outward permanently, and the record is the light itself. That is the reframe I want you to carry from here. Delay is not a fault in the system. Delay is what makes the archive possible. The only reason we can see the early universe at all, the only reason we can look at the deep field and watch galaxies assembling themselves, the only reason there is any historical record in the sky at all, is that light is slow enough for the past to still be arriving. If light were infinitely fast, you would see everything as it is right now, and you would see nothing else. There would be no astronomy of the past. There would be no deep field. The universe would present you with a single instantaneous surface, and its entire history would be permanently invisible, gone the moment it happened. The lateness is the record. Take away the delay, and you take away everything we have ever learned about where any of this came from. Now let us follow the shells outward, because there is somebody out there, and we need to talk about them. Not literally. I am not making a claim about anybody existing anywhere, but the geometry works the same whether or not anyone is there to occupy the position, and the position is the point. Pick a distance. Say 65 million light years. There is nothing special about it. Choose a galaxy at that distance, an ordinary one, nothing remarkable, and put an observer in it. Give them a telescope. Give them patience and curiosity and an interest in small blue worlds. Point them at us. What arrives at their instrument tonight is a shell of light that left this planet 65 million years ago, which means that if they are watching Earth, they are watching the end of the age of the dinosaurs. They are seeing a world with no grass in the form you know it, no primates, no humans, nothing that would be recognizable to you as belonging to your world. The impact and its aftermath are, to them, current events. They would be looking at the most catastrophic day in this planet's recent history and calling it now. They are not seeing the past. From where they are standing, that is the present. That is the most up-to-date information about Earth that physics allows them to have. There is nothing wrong with their instrument. There is no better observation available to them. That is simply what Earth is. From 65 million light years away, tonight, and it works at every distance. Pick a different one. At 2.5 million light years, an observer in Andromeda pointing back at us tonight would see a planet with no cities, no agriculture, no writing, no fire under control. They would see a green and blue world with upright creatures on it doing something with stone, and if they were extremely careful, they might notice nothing at all worth noting. At 10,000 light years, an observer would see the end of the last ice age and the very first experiments with planting seeds. At 2,000 light years, an observer would see empires you have read about in their ordinary daily operation. At 200 light years, they would see a world without electric light, its cities marked at night only by fire. At 50 light years, they would see the world your grandparents grew up in. At 4 light years, our nearest neighbor sees a version of this planet from a little over 4 years ago, which is close enough to be almost current and still not current. Every one of those observers is correct. Not one of them is looking at a stale image. Every one of them is receiving the freshest possible report, the absolute best that the universe permits from their position. And every one of those reports describes a different Earth. There is no single true present state of this planet available to the universe. There is only a smooth gradient of reports spreading outward, each one accurate for its distance, all of them simultaneously in transit right now. Earth is not one thing out there. Earth is a nested sequence of every version of itself, all traveling outward at once, all still arriving somewhere. Now flip it, because this is the part that changes the temperature of the whole thing. Right now, tonight, in whatever room you are sitting in, light is leaving you. The lamp is illuminating your face and your hands and the wall behind you, and some fraction of that light is reflecting off you and going out the window. It passes through the atmosphere, thins out, keeps going. Some of it will pass the orbit of the moon in a little over a second. Some of it will pass the orbit of Mars within the hour. Within a few years, some of it will pass the nearest star. It does not stop. There is nowhere for it to stop. Empty space does not absorb light, and the vast majority of directions from here contain nothing at all for an enormously long way. It just goes. This moment, this exact one, you in a room in the dark, listening to a voice talk about light, is currently being broadcast outward in every direction at 300,000 kilometers per second, and it will continue to travel outward for as long as the universe permits anything to travel. In 4 years it will reach the nearest star. In 100 years it will be passing the stars whose names you know. In 2.5 million years it will arrive at Andromeda and continue past it. In 65 million years it will be crossing the distance at which somebody could be watching dinosaurs if they were pointed the other way. In 1 billion years it will still be going, thinned almost past any hope of detection, but going. Your present is already someone else's future past. And here is what that means, stated as plainly as I can manage without decoration. This night is not going to be erased, not in the informational sense. The record of it is already departing, already committed, already beyond any possibility of recall. It cannot be edited. It cannot be taken back. It will still be traveling when this room no longer exists, when this building no longer exists, when the language you are hearing has no speakers left, when this planet is a very different place with a very different surface, and nobody at all who remembers what a Thursday was. The light will still be going. That is not a comfort in the way people usually mean comfort. Nobody is going to receive it. There is almost certainly no observer at any of those distances, and even if there were, the signal from a single lit room would be so far below detectability as to be meaningless in practice. I am not telling you that somebody will see you. I am telling you something narrower, and I think sturdier. Nothing is erased by time. It only becomes unreachable. Those are different things, and we usually run them together. When we say something is gone, we normally mean that it has ceased to exist, that it has been deleted from the world, that the universe no longer contains it in any form. That is the intuition. The past is over, therefore the past is nothing. But the past is not nothing. The past is the entire contents of the sky. The past is the only thing anyone has ever seen. Every event that has happened is still propagating outward as a physical fact, at this moment, in every direction, and will continue to do so indefinitely. What is lost is not the event. What is lost is our access to it. We cannot get in front of the light. We cannot travel out to meet an old shell and read it. We cannot catch up. The information about this room 500 years ago is out there, 500 light years away, physically present in the universe tonight, and we cannot reach it, and no one ever will. Unreachable is a different condition from non-existent. It is a statement about our position, not about the thing. And the same is true of everything you have lost. The afternoons you cannot quite recall, the rooms you will never stand in again, the people who are not here. Those events happened. They were real. They emitted and reflected light, and that light left and is still going, and nothing that has occurred since can reach back and unmake it. The universe has no delete function. It only has distance. I want to be careful here, because this is the point where this kind of talk can slide into something I do not want to offer you. I am not saying that anyone is preserved somewhere, or that anything is watching, or that this constitutes any kind of continuation for the people involved. It does not. Light carrying an image of a person is not a person. The archive is real, and it is also completely indifferent, and it does not know what it holds. What I am saying is smaller and more exact. The physical structure of this universe is such that events are permanent and access is temporary. That is the actual arrangement, not the other way around. We assume the world was made of a vanishing present and a dissolving past, and the geometry says the opposite. The present is the thing that never existed as an observable. The past is the thing that never goes away. Now let us come back to the isolation, because in the deep field part I left you in something heavy and I said we would return to it. There, standing at the center of a sphere of received light, unable to see anything as it is, unable to be contacted at any speed better than the fixed one, the situation looked like exile. Every observer alone at the center of their own bubble, receiving old news, unable to reply in any useful time frame, permanently locked out of the present of everything they can see. That reading is correct as far as it goes. It just stops too early, because the same geometry that locks you out of everyone else's present includes you permanently in everyone else's past. Look at what the walk has actually shown. You cannot see the sun as it is, and the sun cannot see you as you are, and both of you are permanently in each other's record. You cannot reach the nearest star, and the nearest star cannot reach you, and your light is going there anyway, and has been going there your entire life, and will arrive. You cannot observe the deep field as it is now, and nobody in the deep field can observe you as you are now, and every moment of this planet's history is nonetheless traveling out through that region and past it and beyond it. You are locked out of the present, and you are written into the future of every direction at once, and both of these are consequences of the same single fact, which is that light is fast and finite and cannot be recalled. You do not get to be current, you do get to be permanent. And the isolation, seen properly, was never isolation in the emotional sense. It was never the universe holding you at arm's length. It was a shape, applied evenly to everything, with no exceptions and no favorites. The furthest galaxy in the deep field is in exactly your position. It sits at the center of its own sphere, receiving old light, unable to see anything as it is, unable to be reached, broadcasting itself outward forever. Every observer that has ever existed or will ever exist is in this arrangement. Nobody is more included than you. Nobody is closer to the present. There is no privileged position anywhere in the universe from which things can be seen as they are, and there is no position anywhere from which you can be excluded from the record. That is a very even-handed universe. It is not warm, it does not care, but it is scrupulously fair, and it does not single anyone out. And there is a kind of peace available in that which is not the same as consolation, and is, I think, more durable. So the delay, which arrived at the beginning of tonight as a small, unsettling fact about your hand, turns out to be the mechanism by which anything at all is preserved. The lateness is what makes the archive. The distance is what makes the record. The impossibility of ever seeing the present is the same impossibility that means nothing is ever fully lost. And you, sitting in a room in the dark, receiving light from a lamp that is a few billionths of a second old, and from a screen, and from a wall, and possibly from a window with stars behind it, that are years and centuries and millions of years old, are simultaneously sending, continuously, without effort, without intention, in every direction. Right now, the whole universe is doing this to itself, all the time, everywhere. Everything is receiving, everything is broadcasting, nobody is current, nothing is erased. That is the arrangement. That is what light carries. Raise your hand toward the window again. The same hand, the same window, the same lamp or screen or pale wash of streetlight that was there when we started, hours ago now, before any of this had been said. Lift it into the light and look at the back of it, the knuckles, the lines, the edge, where the skin catches the light and the shadow begins. Nothing about your hand has changed. Everything about what you are doing has. Because at the beginning of tonight, when I asked you to do this, you were looking at your hand. That is what it felt like, and that is what the language said, and there was no reason to doubt it. Now you know what is actually happening. Light is leaving the surface of your skin. It is crossing the small gap between your fingers and your face. It is taking about 1.5 billionths of a second to do it, which is a length of time you cannot feel, cannot subdivide, cannot in any way experience. And then it is arriving. You are not looking at your hand. You are receiving it. And that reception is not the end of the process either. We followed it inward. The light lands on the back of your eye. A molecule bends. The chemistry begins. The signal leaves along the nerve at about 100 meters per second, which is 3 million times slower than the light that carried the message to your door. It reaches the back of your skull. It is taken apart into edges and orientations and motion and color, sorted through layer after layer, and then assembled along with everything else arriving at that moment from your ears and your skin and your body into a single coherent scene that is handed to you as the present. That takes about 1/10 of a second. So the hand you are looking at is 1/10 of a second old, not because of the distance. The distance contributed almost nothing. The delay is yours. It is inside you. It has been inside you your entire life, and you have never once detected it. Lower your hand. Look at the room. The wall across from you, 3 or 5 meters off, is sending light that is 10 or 15 billionths of a second old. The far corner is older by a few billionths more. The lamp, the door, the edge of the ceiling, the shape of whatever furniture is holding you up right now, all of it arriving, all of it slightly late, all of it graded by distance in a way that is perfectly precise and completely undetectable. The screen, if you are holding one, is about 1 billionth of a second away. And 1 billionth of a second, you now know, has a size. It is about the length of a ruler, about the length of your forearm from elbow to wrist. Put your hands a foot apart, and you are holding 1 billionth of a second in the space between them. Time has a length out here. That is one of the things tonight has been for. Now the face across the table. Maybe there is one. Maybe there is not, and you are alone with a voice in the dark, which is its own arrangement, and a perfectly good one. But bring it back either way, 1 meter away, 1.5 meters. Somebody whose face you know so well that you stopped looking at it properly a long time ago. 5 billionths of a second in the air between their skin and your eye. Then 1/10 of a second inside you. Then the reconstruction, which is the part that matters most. Because the picture you have of them is not a picture that was delivered to you. It is a picture that was built. The visual data was late. The sound of their voice was later. The touch of their hand, if they reached across, arrived on a different schedule again. Your brain held the fast arrivals and waited for the slow ones, and stitched them together into a single moment that never existed anywhere except in your head. And then it went one step further and predicted forward, pushing the image ahead to compensate for its own lateness, so that you could reach for them and catch them and read their expression in time for it to be useful. In the 10th of a second it took to do all that, they moved, slightly, nothing dramatic. The muscles around the mouth shifted, the eyes moved a fraction. The expression continued becoming whatever it was becoming. You are seeing a reconstruction of someone who has already moved on, and you have never seen them any other way. Not once. Not on the first day, not on the best day, not on the day you understood something about them that changed everything. Every version of that face you have ever held was a rebuilt report of a moment already finished, and every one of them was accurate. That is the other half, and it does not cancel. You read their mood from a fraction of an expression, and you were right. You knew from across a room, before a word, that something was wrong, and you were right. The reconstruction works. It has carried you through every relationship you have ever had, without a single failure that could be traced to the delay. The gap is real. The face is real. Both. Now stand up, if you can, and go to the window. Or stay exactly where you are and imagine it, which is the same walk done more quietly. Look out. Look up. The moon, if it is there, is 1 3/10 seconds away. 1 3/10 seconds is a real amount of time. It is the gap between two resting heartbeats. It is one slow breath in. It is how long it takes to say the word Wednesday without hurrying it. If something struck that surface at the instant you looked, you would stand there for over a second in front of a moon where nothing had happened. The dust would already be rising. The event would already be finished. And you would be looking at the before. We know this delay in a very direct way. People have talked across it. Every sentence took a second and a bit to get there, and a second and a bit to come back, and the pause in the middle was not a fault in the equipment. It was the cost of the distance, paid in time, exactly as it must be paid. Then the planets, each one a doubled delay, sunlight crossing out and reflected light crossing back, minutes stacked on minutes. Venus at 8 to 20 minutes, Mars at 16 to 35, Jupiter at well over an hour, Saturn at around 2.5 hours, which means that the Saturn you might see tonight left before the plates were cleared from dinner, all of them on the same black surface, all of them looking equally present, nothing in the image telling you which is which. Then the Sunday. It is under the horizon somewhere right now, on the other side of the ground you are standing on, and in some number of hours it will come back and lay itself across your window and the side of your sleeping face. 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Not a technical figure, a walk to the corner, the time between putting the water on and the kitchen filling with steam, a shower, 2 songs. Every sunny day of your life arrived 8 minutes and 20 seconds after it left. Every warmth on the back of your neck in summer departed that surface before you found your keys, before you decided to go outside, before you knew you were going to. It was already crossing while you were still inside the house. And if it stopped, the sky would stay bright and ordinary for 8 full minutes, and the shadows would sit at the same angle, and the birds would go on, and there would be no way at all to know. Not because anything is hidden from you, because the news has not arrived, and there is no faster messenger to send ahead and ask. That is not a warning. That star is stable and enormous and boring in the best possible way. It is a demonstration. It shows you that the world can look completely undisturbed while being out of date, and that there is nothing in your perception, no instinct, no sharpened attention that can ever tell you otherwise. Then, out past the planets, where the units change and do not change gently, the nearest star, 4¼ years. Think again about where you were 4 years and 3 months ago. What room, what city, what you were worried about, that thing that felt permanent, that you would now have to work to remember clearly. Someone who started a degree, then has finished it and moved twice. A child born, then can run and argue and has opinions about food. Something began then and has already run its entire course and ended. That is the delay to our nearest neighbor, the closest thing there is. Everything else is further. Then the named stars. Sirius at 8½ years, Vega at 25, Arcturus at 37, Polaris at around 450, which means that every sailor who ever steered by it was steering by centuries-old light, and it worked perfectly. Betelgeuse at 500 or 600, Rigel at 860, Deneb somewhere past 1,000, and possibly well past it, and the constellations they make are not real. Orion is not a group. Those stars are not neighbors, not in space, and not in time. The shape exists only from here, only along this one line of sight, and it is made of unrelated moments from unrelated centuries, arranged by your own position into a figure with a name and a season. The hunter is not made of stars, he is made of arrivals, and almost all of those stars are still burning tonight. That matters, and it is worth carrying out of here. The sky above your head is not a field of ghosts. The stars your eye can reach are close and long-lived, and the great majority of them are exactly where they appear to be, doing exactly what they appear to be doing. The strangeness was never that they are gone. The strangeness is that they are there, right now, unmistakably real, and you still cannot see what they are doing at this instant, and you never will. The sky is a live view, and the sky is an archive. Both. Then further, past what the eye can hold, into what we can only reach together with instruments built for exactly this. The smudge in Andromeda, 2½ million years. Light that left before anything you would call a person walked on this planet. Light that was already crossing while the ice advanced and retreated, again and again, still crossing through the first controlled fire, the first buried dead, the first hand pressed to a cave wall, still crossing through the first planted seed, the first written number, the first law cut into stone, still crossing through every empire you have read about, still crossing while you were born, and through your whole childhood, and through every night you have ever spent awake worrying about something, and it finished tonight, in your eye, in silence, with nothing to mark it. Then the deep field, a patch of sky the size of a grain of sand, held at arm's length, stared at for hours, filling up with thousands of galaxies, at thousands of separate depths. 4 billion years beside 9 billion beside 12, apparently touching, actually unreachable from each other. Thousands of unrelated eras flattened into one rectangle because they happen to lie along the same line. And out there, at those depths, the honest version of the old story finally becomes true. Those objects have had billions of years to become something else. They have merged and quieted and rearranged. The bright, short-lived stars whose light we are collecting ended long before that light was halfway here. We are watching things that are finished, and there is no possible instrument, ever, that will show us what replaced them. Then, the limit, which is not made of space, but of time. 13.8 billion years is all the time light has had to travel anywhere, so there is a distance past which nothing has had time to arrive. Not hidden, not faint, just not yet delivered, and in many cases, never. And at the very edge, the oldest arriving light of all, released when the fog cleared, 380,000 years in, stretched by the expansion of everything until it is no longer visible at all, arriving from every direction at once, all the time, tonight, on you. That is the wall. Nothing earlier can ever be seen, because before it there was no light that could travel. So here is where the walk leaves you. You are sitting at the center of a sphere of received light. Everything you can know arrives at that center, late, at a fixed rate, in an order set entirely by distance. The near things almost current, the far things ancient, everything in between graded smoothly by delay. And that is not exile. That is not the universe holding you at arm's length or having an opinion about your size. It is a shape applied evenly, with no exceptions and no favorites. The furthest galaxy in the deep field sits at the center of its own sphere in exactly your position, receiving old news, unable to see anything as it is, broadcasting itself outward forever. Nobody is more current than you. There is no privileged seat anywhere in this universe from which things can be seen as they are. And while you sit there unable to see the present, your own light is leaving. Off your face, off your hands, out the window, past the moon within seconds, past the nearest star within a few years, going and going with nowhere to stop. You are locked out of the present. You are written into everything that comes after, both. So here is the only thing I am going to ask you to do tonight. Look up, or look at the person across from you, if there is one, or at your own hand, or at the wall, or at the light coming under the door, and understand that you are not witnessing it. You are receiving something that was sent, something left. It crossed a distance. It arrived here, at you, at this exact position in the universe, and nowhere else in quite this way. However far it came, whether it was a billionth of a second or 2.5 million years, the journey ended in you. That is what seeing is. That has always been what seeing is. Now let it get simple. Everything you have ever seen arrived. Every face, every room, every window, every morning. It got here. It crossed whatever distance it had to cross, and it reached you. Nothing you have ever looked at failed to arrive. That is the whole record. Every single thing you have seen in your life made it. The light left, and it traveled, and it found you, and that is why you know about it at all. The delay was never the world keeping its distance. The delay was the journey, and the journey ended here. So there is nothing to catch up to tonight. There never was. You were never behind. You were never missing anything. You are exactly where the light is arriving. Let your eyes go soft now. The lamp is a billionth of a second away. The wall is a few billionths. The room is arriving. It has been arriving the whole time. The moon is a second and a bit if it is up there. The sun is 8 minutes and 20 seconds, and it is coming back. The nearest star is 4 years out, and its light is already on the way. The oldest light in the universe is falling on the roof above you right now, quietly from every direction, and it has been doing that your entire life. None of it is late for you. All of it is right on time. You do not have to hold any of it. You do not have to keep up. Nothing is being missed. The light is doing the traveling. You only have to be here. Let your hand rest. Let the room be old and warm and arriving. Let the sky go on sending. Everything reaches you eventually. Everything already has. Close your eyes. The light will keep coming. It always has. Rest now.